Raji, will you take me out of the picture?
ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So, the unique teaching methodology which we started to discuss yesterday continues throughout the Upanishad. And that is why, specifically, this teaching is so effective. It is effective because it scrambles the mind and leads to a deeper understanding, which simultaneously is devoid of notions of limitations, and at the same time, while it is devoid, while it rids the mind of the notions of limitation, leads to an understanding of the self that includes, leads to an understanding of Brahman that includes the self. That is why these verses are so important. And so, if we look where we are, let us just see. The last one we talked about was the uh, yeah. So then verses number uh, 6 to 6, 7, 8, 9 till the end of the chapter, till the end of part 1, are all very beautiful because each indriya, each sense organ is taken separately, because the orientation of the sense organs is to see them as a means of knowledge, and therefore what, and therefore there is the recipe for duality. Each cognition becomes a recipe for duality. That which is heard through the ears becomes a recipe for the duality because it maintains the difference between the hearer and the heard, and the means of knowledge called hearing. And then whatever is seen through the pair of eyes becomes a recipe for the continuation of duality because it maintains comfortably the distinctions between seer, seen, and mode of sight, mode of seeing, means of knowledge. And similarly, whatever is grasped through the mind is again comfortable for us as human beings, because the pervasive orientation is to see the thinker as separate from the thought and from the mode of thinking. Thinker, thought, and the object of thought, subject of thought, all these things, there is that separation. And so this separation here is going to be is going to be cut down through a unique way. In fact, all of these four verses till the end of the chapter may be considered mahavakyas. why may, should be considered Mahavakyas, primarily because in removing these artificial distinctions we have put between the cognizer and the cognized and the means of cognition, they, in erasing that, Advaita Siddhi takes place, that oneness takes place, oneness is established, and the oneness cannot be established without you. You have to be there. As that oneness, you have to be there. And if you are not there, there is no oneness without you. There is no limitlessness without you. You can't search for limitlessness somewhere outside of you. And so that oneness, that limitlessness is effortlessly established through these words of the teacher in the Shruti, who very modestly said, in our last class we saw, that I don't know how to teach this. We don't know how to teach this other than to rely on the Guru Parampara, other than to rely on the wealth of knowledge of the entire lineage. We don't know how to teach this. So then, so these verses follow. They all have the same purport. So I'm going to take them as a group, and then we'll just discuss them. Yadvacha anabhyuditam yena vag abhyudyate तदेव ब्रह्मत्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यन्मनसा न मनुते येनाहुर्मनोमतं तदेव ब्रह्मत्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यच्चक्षुषा न पश्यति येन चक्षुंषि पश्यति तदेव ब्रह्मत्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यच्छ्रोत्रेण न शृणोति येन श्रोत्रमिदम् इमं श्रुतं तदेव ब्रह्मत्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यत्प्राणेन न प्राणीति येन प्राणः प्रणीयते तदेव ब्रह्मत्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते. So this is, you can see that it has the same refrain. And what is that refrain? Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi. Tvam Vidhi. You please know. You know. In fact, it's an order. It's a lot, imperative. You must know. Please know this. You have to know this. Because otherwise the whole thing is missed. Like the 10th man story, our favorite 10th man story, Vedanta story, where one forgets to count oneself. So if you don't count yourself, there is no Advaita, because you are still hanging around as a separate entity. And to this effect, these verses erase that separation cognitively, of course. So we begin with speech here. Yad vacha anabhyuditam. Anabhyuditam, not revealed by speech. That which is not revealed by speech. Okay, if speech doesn't reveal it, then what reveals it? In fact, that which reveals the existence of speech. You see, it is all turned around very beautifully. Know this to be Brahman, not what is revealed by speech, but that which reveals the existence of speech itself, that upon which speech depends to be revealed. Because how are words formed? How are words articulated? Without Brahman, what will happen? Nothing will happen. If Brahman were to withdraw from the body mind complex and refuse to inhabit the body mind sense complex, no speech can take place. Speech is upalakshana, is metaphoric of all the karmendriyas, all the organs of actions. So the organs of actions come to rest. They cannot function, because this is the one that powers the speech, that which brings speech to light. So when the Swami is talking and you are saying, aha, I hear, I understand, that is Brahman, not which you put on the altar and worship. This is something which is very important. So that means my puja room is without Brahman? No, no, no. Your puja room is also Brahman. The deities that I have there in my puja closet, they are not Brahman. They are also Brahman, but Brahman is not any one thing. Brahman is the worshipper, the content, the truth of the worshipper, and that which is worshipped is also not away from Brahman. But as I said, the orientation, most religions stop here. And for us, this is the beginning point. We start here, where most religions come to an end. Most religions are based on belief, and you have to believe that there is some savior, and that person, that God will save you. And of course, this God is different. Made this earth full of all kinds of problems, and then so somewhere there is in Japan there is earthquake, somewhere else there is political strife, in India farmers are demonstrating, God knows for what, but they are demonstrating, and then and somewhere else there are certain other protests. Adharma seems to be the ruling. So, and then Bhagavan, what has he done? He has put us all here. Where is Bhagavan? Not locally available, in heaven, sitting somewhere. This is most people's belief. Even in the Hindu Dharma, as I said, we have a concept of heaven, but thankfully it is not forever. Because if heaven is forever and it's outside of you, this is illogical. Heaven cannot be forever and still be located outside of you. That which is limitless cannot have a location, and so therefore, if you are invoking Bhagavan in the puja room, and if you are tied to the tied to the puja means the puja is a yoga. This is going to be talked about later. Bhakti is yoga. Yoga means a committed lifestyle. A lifestyle of karma and devotion, prayer, and the freeing of one's actions from the pressures of raga and dvesha, strong preferences and strong prejudices, is what is advocated in order to be able to qualify and purify the mind and qualify to understand this. But the orientation is to have some kind of a puja zone. Here I commune with the gods, so to speak, with all the devatas. I have a communion, and then I extract promises from them. Drop a flower now. Say yes, because I want this right now. I want everybody to be okay. Say you will do this. All prayers are answered. Sometimes the answer is no, okay, or not yet. That we are not able to take. That we argue with that. And so here this whole, and sometimes what is that? So sometimes it is a 911 desperation. Bhagavan is on speed dial. Oh no, this terrible thing happened. And until the terrible thing happened, Bhagavan was not even thought of. And then this is Artha Bhakti, sudden remembrance, quote unquote, of Bhagavan. Why? Because something did not go as I wanted it to go. So then Bhagavan suddenly is brought into the picture. Then the other devotee is a little more pragmatic and says, okay, 50-50. Whatever you give me, half of it is yours. Bhagavan says, all of it is actually mine. You don't know it. So, but anyway, 50-50. Deal making with Bhagavan. And people do this in India without any problems. In fact, it is something which is so common. They go to the goddess temple and say, let me have a wonderful domestic life with a spouse and the children and everybody. And then in return, I'll give you a sari, oh mother. And the mother says, sorry, very, very sorry, I'm not really waiting for your sari. As though the mother of the universe is waiting for your 6 yards of fabric to be bestowed. But still she is so compassionate, she doesn't say anything. And Bhagavan Krishna is so compassionate. Bhagavan Krishna says all kinds of bhaktas, Udara Sarva Evate, they are all exalted because at least they are bhaktas. At least they think of me once in a while. At least they come to me with some gifts and bribes. No problem. I will bless all of them. This is what the whole thing is. So now, if we are to go beyond this divide, and then again, this divide is hurtful for the chances of understanding this as the truth of oneself. It comes in the way because this orientation as Bhagavan, as some kind of an entity outside of myself, is the cause of fear. One fears Bhagavan. And this much the Taittiriya Upanishad also says. Bhishasmadvatah pavate bhishodeti suryah bhishasmadagnischendrascha mrityurdhavati panchama eti. Very nice. So Bhishad Asmat, out of fear of this God, of this Brahman, as it were, the wind blows. Not that the wind is afraid, Vayu is not afraid, but it's as though they all follow the laws without fail, as though they might be afraid. The sun rises and sets in a timely fashion, as though it is fearful, in obedience to the law. Because there is obedience, there is fear. And then Indra and Agni do their jobs. And then death, which makes everybody run, runs at the thought of Bhagavan, runs to obey Bhagavan. Mrityur dhavati panchama. Panchama means the fifth one. Indra, Agni, Vayu, Surya, and then fifth one is Mrityu dhavati. So in whose these entities seem to obey Bhagavan as though out of fear. Why does the Taittiriya Upanishad says as though out of fear? Because that is the human orientation. God will be angry with me. This is kind of a pervasive delusion. Because there is no God outside of you. That is why worshipping Lord Dakshinamurti is so beautiful. Because it is called Ashtamurti. This deity is called Ashtamurti. It is a 8-aspected deity. So we have the 5 elements denoted by the stone. The earth is denoted by the stone from which the murti is crafted. Then we have the other 4 elements, depicted in very wonderful ways. Water is there, Ganga carrying Bhagavan, carrying Ganga on the head, so water element is included. Air element is included because there is a scarf that is tied to the head. Bandana, the word bandana is actually bandhana. Bandhana, it's a tie. And why is the tie? Otherwise, like Nataraja, his hair will be flowing in the wind. Here it is not flowing in the wind. So it's a silent nod to the wind that it is tied. So air element, water element, earth element, and of course he's holding the fire in the upper left hand. He's holding the fire. And then what? Damaru in the upper right hand, that shows space, because sound always is connected to space. Sound is in space. So then all the 5 elements have come in, and the 5 elements have come in. So those are 5, and then 6 and 7, the sun and the moon, the 2 celestials which help us to lead our lives, light up our day and light up our nights. Sun and the moon, 7. What is the 8th aspect? It is you. You complete Bhagavan. Bhagavan completes you. Without the upasaka, the worshipper, there is no worship. The worshipper has to include oneself in worship. And to this end, all our shastras, there is a certain kind of nyasas, bodily rituals that one does to include, to purify oneself and include oneself as part of the worship. But this is all forgotten because the orientation is so strong, and one somehow is able to understand Vedanta very nicely until one comes to this concept of Bhagavan, and after that, don't touch because this is my comfort zone. And here, that comfort zone, the rug of the comfort zone, is going to be gently pulled by Mother Shruti in these 4 5 verses, and there is no leg to stand on. Help, I'm falling. Help. You're falling into the correct understanding that this is actually wonderful. No need to cry for help because help is already at hand because the teaching is taking place. So that because of which speech is revealed, that which is not revealed by speech, tadeva, tatu here means that pratyagatman, that atma, that inner self which you have been wanting to understand, that we have been discussing, that is Brahman alone, which reveals speech, which is not an object of speech. That is what you should know as Brahman, which includes you. That consciousness is Brahman. Na idam. Na idam here, the word idam means this. So not this. Not this means what? Not anything that is qualified by the word this. Not anything, in other words, to put it more sophisticatedly, nothing that is an object of this cognition. There are two kinds of cognition in the world. One is I cognition. I know I am, I am, I am, I am, now I am, now I am, now I am, I am, I am, I am. That is the refrain. In a music concert there is a tanpura which holds the tune, which holds the notes of the raga, of the melody to be sung. And so that is I am now. These are the three strings that overlay every other cognition is dependent on this I cognition. So this is I cognition. The I cognition is that tanpura, the stringed instrument which is playing the notes of that particular raga or melody that is to be sung. So this is what is called I cognition. And then in addition to I cognition, there is this cognition. What is this cognition? This cognition is cognitions of various objects in the universe. And to stretch the musical concert metaphor, this cognition is the drummer, tabla wala, and then the person singing, and somebody is playing the violin, and then somebody else is, keeping the beat, and all other instruments in the orchestra. This cognition, that is particular. And the vocalist that is improvising on the raga, taking the raga to places that has never been visited, enthralling the audience, taking the audience along with her or him, and the audience is ecstatic because they have never seen this, they have never heard this. Because you stretch the raga and you take it to the edge of another raga and then you bring it back. Before somebody is confused, oh my God, what raga is being sung now? You bring it back now. Beautiful. And all this is these particularities. These particularities are all this cognition. They represent this cognition, this cognition, this cognition. And the least celebrated is the tanpura wala, the person playing the tanpura. This is somewhere in the background. All these other people take the forefront. They are celebrated. They are available for objectification immediately. They are celebrated. They are, felicitated. And then usually the person playing the tanpura is some young cousin of the musician or somebody, some family member or somebody like that. in the background. One young girl or boy will be playing the tanpura. And then at the end, last thought, oh, last but not the least, here is the one on the tanpura, so and so. That's not considered important, because what did the person do? Just, it was already tuned, and then the person went on strumming the notes. But that is what is without that strumming. If the tanpura were taken away, the raga will not be the same. So that unchanging eye cognition becomes the what is that, the stratum, the canvas upon which all the this cognitions can unfold. If the eye cognition is not taken into account, then then the this cognition has no meaning. So eye cognition precedes this cognition. In fact, this cognition depends on eye cognition. Yadyad idantaya grihyate. That anything that is understood by this cognition has to have eye cognition. There has to be the presence of eye cognition. In the presence of eye cognition alone, this cognition can be revealed, can be understood, can be enjoyed. All the things in the universe whose presence we enjoy, who we love to name, who, all the things that we like to understand, is all what? This cognition, idam vastu vishayah, idam vastu pratiti. This pratiti means cognition. And then this idam vastu cannot be sustained, cannot exist, cannot be understood without aham. And then idam pratiti, idam cognition, this cognition cannot subsist without I cognition. So taking this a little more further, we can say anything that is qualified by the preposition this is mithya. Why do you say that? Because anything that I preface with the word this depends on the I. But the I cognition does not depend on another cognition. You see what I'm saying? I cognition is self-revealing, independent, satyam. So therefore, idam, na idam, na idam, na idam. It's like saying na iti, na iti, na iti, same thing. Na idam, nedam, nedam, yadidam upasate. So if you're sitting for worship, nothing wrong, as I said. If you see worship as a yoga, if you see worship as a part and parcel of the program for self growth and the program for dropping ragadveshas, then there is no problem at all. For inner maturity, any worship that is conducted is just wonderful. But the problem comes because the worship of this, anything, any deity that may be there on the altar, is seen as something outside of you, whose grace has to be harnessed separately, and that itself becomes a samsara. That becomes that there is a certain addiction there. An addictive orientation to seeing Bhagavan as separate from you. Okay, I understand Jagat is Brahman, but what about Ishvara? Ishvara is separate from me, has to be separate from me. So this orientation is very strong. That's why the teacher takes the time to take each and everything which is intimate to oneself, like speech, mind, etc. So the next verse talks about the mind. Yan, very famous verse. Yan manasana manute, yen ahur mano matam. That which is not an agent, that for which knowledge the mind is not an agent. The mind is not the agent of which self-knowledge. And in fact, because of the presence of the I, the mana is matam. The mind itself is known as now I am calm, meaning the mind is calm, now restless, now tearful, now feeling deprived, now bored, now entertained, now focused, now distracted. The now is constant. That now belongs to I cognition. Distracted, focused, restless, calm, all these dualities, all these adjectives belong to the this cognition. So the mind comes under this cognition. And even though there is some kind of an intimate connection between I and the mind, let it not be confused. Let it not be conflated. Let it be always understood as an object of this cognition. Very important. Because as I told you, the mind declared that it is going to it is going to capture Brahman and bring it. And it was, as we know, it was thoroughly unsuccessful in bringing Brahman and capturing Brahman, naming Brahman as an object. And so what is to be known in this verse is that the mind is not an agent of this knowledge. But then the Kathopanishad puts us on a spin, because the same verse is turned on its head. Not the same verse, but the thought here is opposite in the Kathopanishad. Manasa eva idam aptavyam. Through the mind alone this is to be known. Ayyayo, is this a contradiction? No, it is not. So first, the mind and the ahankara are removed in Brahman enquiry. Why? Because they are not a means to this knowledge. And the ahankara, which is sitting on the throne like a pramata, like the knower, wearing the mantle of the knower, is unceremoniously dethroned. The mind is shooed from the Brahman knowledge because it is not an agent. And then what? Then it is told to come through the back. You know, just like, in these big hotels, etc., 5-star hotels, the guests and all come through the front. And the delivery people and the big delivery trucks, there is a different entrance for all the things that are being delivered to the hotel. They have to go through the back. So the mind starts to walk in through the front. No, no, no. You are you are not the guest in this scenario. Oh, should I go away? No, no, no. Come round the back. There is a job for you. You are a hired help in Brahman knowledge. You are not the agent of this knowledge. You are the receptacle where the knowledge takes place. So the knowledge that takes place in the mind, for which the mind is not an agent, the mind cannot and does not produce this knowledge, primarily because the knowledge is already there, it is not a product. And yet a mind full of all kinds of pre-existing notions cannot be a proper conduit or a place where the knowledge takes place. So the mind is told to go take a shower and then come back as a helper, purify itself through karma yoga, through bhakti, through all kinds of sadhanas, and then the mind is ready to receive this knowledge without wanting to be in the seat of the agent, karta. So this is what is talked about here. And then when we look at this next line, Tadeva Brahmatvam Vidhi Nedam Yadidam Upasate. So the penchant of the mind to try to hang on to some idea of Bhagavan, God, which is again a very subjective idea, that loosens. Then same thing, the next two are again very similar. Yad chakshusha na pashyati, yad shrotreda na shrinoti. That which is not seen or heard through the eyes or ears respectively, and because of which the eyes come to light because of which the ears come to light. And so this is this takes us on the in Buddhist territory. For example, if a redwood tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? This famous what is it called, koan or something like that. And if one is a scientist, they will say of course it makes a sound because it follows the laws of physics, and it falls from such a height, and any object falling from such a height will make this kind of a sound with this mass, falling at this velocity will make a sound, the physicist will argue. But you can send the physicist home by asking a simple question as a Vedantin. Is a sound, can a sound be called a sound if it is not heard? If it is not heard, is it a sound? Huh. The physicist goes home. Okay, this is not in our branch of knowledge. You sit and figure out this ontological stuff. We don't know. Is the sound a sound? Without a pair of ears, is the sound an uncognized we can't even call it a sound, an uncognized entity? Can it get the epithet of being a sound without a pair of ears? So therefore, that which the ears cognize, definitely. But now, that which cognizes the ears, I can't hear very well today. My ears are blocked. What makes you say that? That is Brahman. That witness, the content, the truth of that witness. And same thing with the eyes. The Drig Drishya Viveka, unfolds this beautifully. Andhyam, Mandhyam, Patavam. My eyes are very sharp today. Oh no, I cannot see at all. I think I need to go for a checkup. I have cataracts. I can't see at all. I'm almost blind. And then I can see, but not very clearly. There seems to be some foreign object in the eye. That which says this, that is bhasati ekadha chitihi, in the presence of which unchanging chit alone all these changes come to light. Know that chit to be Brahman, not some small devata that you have put on the altar. Devata is also Brahman, but Brahman is not just the devata, not your Ishta devata. And so saying, part 1 concludes. And then part 2, I mean, this, Pujya Swamiji used to do very well. I will not try to imitate him because then it will just be a pale imitation. I can just teach how, however it comes to me. And so, in part 2 starts with a Vedanta quiz. So the teacher has taught the whole Upanishad in part 1, and in part 2 he begins with a quiz. He or she begins with a quiz. And the question is not talked about. We just have to extrapolate. We can have fun here. Perhaps the teacher asked the question, all right, come on, chop chop, who knows Brahman? Raise your hand. And even in Zoom, we can raise the hand. Look, yeah, so like I have raised my hand. So who knows Brahman? Raise your hand. And then a student says, yes, you have taught very well. I know Brahman. I know Brahman very well. And the teacher says, shut up, sit down, you don't know anything. Yadi manyase suvedeti dabhramevapi nunam tvam vetha brahmano rupam. If you think you know Brahman very well, my dear fellow, you don't know anything. Shut up. Your knowledge is like daharam, dabhram. Daharam means like space. You are all spaced out. Or there is another, way of saying it. In some texts, the word dabhram is used. Dabhram means a little dust ball. When you sweep up under the couch, you have a little dust bunny. It is called all fluffy. Your knowledge is like that. Foo, you say, it goes with the wind. You don't know anything, because if you say, I know Brahman very well, Suveda means you know it as an object of this cognition, not an object of I cognition. If you know it as an object of this cognition, Brahman becomes one more thing to be pursued in the world, which is why people give this, excuse to me all the time. I'm very busy with with all these pursuits, with my life, with my goals, with my ambition. I don't have time for Brahman. Brahman is not one more cheese, to one more thing to be pursued. How can you think like this? After studying Kenopanishad, all those excuses are gone. They are just, you have to give them a little funeral, and then and then just dismiss them. Because Brahman is not one more thing. In fact, it is you. It is the thing because of which all your goals, all your ambitions, all your talents, all your desires, everything exists. And if you don't know that, you become like sage Narada in the 7th chapter of the Chandogya, who knew everything, but then who knew nothing. And that's why the teacher of Narada, sage Narada, says, my dear sir, you know a lot of nothing because you don't know that one thing which makes all these things into things. And if you don't know that one thing, your knowledge is as good as nothing, because the this cognition, objects of this cognition, don't have a leg to stand on. They are all mithya, dependent reality. Remember, mithya doesn't mean false. It means adhisthana ananyat. They are non-separate from sat, but sat is not mithya. Sat is sat, mithya is sat. So here, the first student fails the quiz because the teacher declares his knowledge to be non-existent, wrong. And so another student, wanting to please the teacher, also raises the hand. Yes, me now, me, pick me. Then the teacher says, okay. And then the student thinks, okay, because the first student who is very bright said, I know Brahman, and that was the wrong answer. So maybe the correct answer is what? I don't know Brahman. Yo, teacher, bho, guru, I don't know Brahman. And the teacher says, I can see that from your face, my dear fellow. Sit down. You don't know Brahman. you know. And the correct answer is applied by the third student. Very beautiful here. And then, listen to what he says in the, he says, Naham manye suvedeti, no na vedeti vedacha, yo nas tadveda tadveda, no na vedeti vedacha. He has learnt the word play and from the teacher. It is very clear. He has learnt the juxtaposition and he has mastered the Upanishadic paradox here very well. So he says, he first quietly says, Manye viditam. I think I know it. All right. He doesn't even raise the hand. He just says quietly, I think I know. So the teacher, hones on to him and says, come on, what do you know? And all this we have to supply because the Upanishad is a lady of few words. She doesn't talk much. We have to just supply the in between things. And then, so perhaps the teacher called on him and we have to infer. And then the student says something very beautiful. I don't consider na aham manye suveda iti. Suveda iti na aham manye. I don't consider that I know Brahman very well as an object of this cognition. Na u na veda iti veda cha. Na u na veda iti. Neither can I say I don't know, because that would be an insult to you, O Guru, because you have been teaching us for days on end, and then of course I know. So Vedacha, it is known to me. It is known to me, but not as an object. It is known to me as me. And then not only that, yo naha, those amongst us, tad Veda, those amongst us who know this, also knows what I mean by saying, I know, but I don't know. I know, but I don't know it as an object of this cognition. Then the teacher is so happy because this is what the teacher was wanting to convey. And the teacher says, Shabash, congratulations. You are a wonderful student and very proud of you, very happy with you. And then the Shruti picks up a couple of verses which are very, 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 very important for this. And what does the Shruti pick up? Yasya matam tasya matam, matam yasya navedasah, avijnatam vijanatam, vijnatam avijanatam. So whether the teacher says this or the Shruti picks it up, we don't know. But the teaching continues, and it is summarized here. So yasya amatam, for whom it is not known, tasya matam, for that person it is known. And the one who says matam, I know it as an object of this cognition, na vedasaha, that person clearly does not know. And so, to sum it up, it is unknown to those who know, and it is known to those who do not know. This is a beautiful, again, lots of paradoxes. And then, if you are scratching the head, that means you are in wonderful territory. That means the ahankara is abandoning the throne of the knower, it's not clinging to power, like certain people clinging to power, dictators, etc. And so it is not clinging to power, it is letting go. It is letting go of the throne and allowing the teacher and the Shruti, the Upanishad book, to sit on the throne. And then ahankara doesn't go away. Ahankara comes around and sits on the floor as a student with folded hands and says, please teach me. Adhihi Bhagavaha. Please teach me Brahman. And so then the ahankara, the I notion, is taught. In fact, we don't dismiss the ahankara. Without ahankara, knowledge cannot take place. But the ahankara, which likes to own everything up, cannot own up this knowledge as an agent or the producer of this knowledge or the owner of this knowledge, because then again there is a difference between the owner and the owned. So there is no advaita siddhi, there is no non-duality cannot take place. One is stuck with this duality. So therefore, the I cognition always remains I cognition. This cognition always remains this cognition. Even that we cannot say. This cognition is non-separate from I. Anything that you refer to as this is non-separate from I. It is revealed. But the I is always transcends whatever you refer to by the word this cognition. In other words, this is I is I. This is I is not this. And if you are confused, Namaha, wonderful, no problem. This is it will come, it will slowly be assimilated. So, this is a knowledge without a knower, this is a knowledge without an owner. The one who cannot say, I know Brahman, who cannot put on their CV, their curriculum, their resume, I know Brahman iti. This is what the whole thing is. Very, very beautiful. And so the Upanishad says, concludes this, sums this up. So the one who says, I know it as an object of this cognition, clearly does not know. The one who says, Brahman is not an object of this cognition, clearly understands. Then comes perhaps a very, what should I say, a breathtaking verse in the Upanishad. This mantra is wonderful. It just blows one away. Let us look at this. Pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate atmana vindate viryam vidyaya vindate mritam. Pratibodha. Bodha, cognition. Bodham prati is pratibodham. This is just Sanskrit, resolving the compound pratibodham, we have to say bodham prati. Through in and every cognition, through each and every cognition, viditam. Viditam is that which is known as the witness of every cognition, and by which knowledge one attains immortality. One stop dying small small deaths, to one is not massacred at the hands of one's desires, unbridled desires. One is not massacred at the hands of anger, fear, depression, etc. Sorrow, all this go away in the wake of this, which knowledge one disidentifies consciously as just the body, just the mind, just the senses, and embraces the entire universe as the truth of oneself. Then what? How to gain this knowledge? Atmana vindate viryam. Atmana. Here, Atmana is not through the Atma. Yes, the don't go by the translation. It's not mine. It is not completely correct, because I didn't have time to do the translation. I was we suddenly understood that there was only Devanagari. We wanted some what's its name, the English speakers also to be able to enjoy the verses. So we quickly put something together. So don't go by the translation. So, go by this translation here, which we are doing in the class. And so, Atmana Vindate Viryam. Atma here is not Atma. Atma here is inner resolve. By the strength of one's inner resolve, gaining the adhikaritvam, taking the effort, making the effort to know this through preparing the mind for which knowledge, gaining the adhikaritvam. Atmana vindate viryam. Viryam means one is qualified, one gains the capacity, one gains the strength, the mental strength, the emotional strength, the physical strength, even to sit for so long. That's why all the yogasanas, yoga, all the moving asanas is in order to be able to sit for meditation, for shravanam, because otherwise one gets all kinds of backache, front ache, side ache, everything is achy. So the asanas help to gain that stillness, to be even able to be seated for the knowledge. The mind has to hone in and not just get distracted by every little thing that it encounters. The body and the mind and the emotions have to cooperate. In the middle of the Mahavakya, sudden spell of depression. What to do? So sad. Suddenly, one is distracted, one is just in the doldrums, because suddenly some core issue came and took a swipe, like an angry cat suddenly came and then took a clawed you from clawed the mind by the emotions of the past, hijacking in the present. What to do? So these are all ways in which one can prepare the mind. One loves up the emotions. We have seen this. One loves up the emotions, integrates them into the adult. In the inner children, in the form of recalcitrant emotions, are loved up, dealt with compassionately through therapy, yoga, whatever it is one is needed. One takes care of things such as transference on the teacher, on the book, on Bhagavan, on the Upanishad, everything. One takes care of not projecting that which does not belong on to various situations. The past does not overpower the present and completely eclipse the knowledge. And so therefore what? So therefore this is why the viryam is needed, that inner resolve, the strength to do this all for the sake of self-discovery, self-understanding. I do this. This is very, very important. And so this inner resolve is what is important, what is needed, what is understood to be paramount, and in gaining this knowledge. So the emotions are healed through cultivation of Shraddha, through loving them up, and the mind is healed by taking it off the unhealthy diet of this cognition, and that separation. And then the so the body is healed through and made limber through various asanas, prayer, etc. The ahankara is told to get off the throne and sit in the place of the student. And so this is Atmana. Through this self resolve, one gains the strength to mental, emotional, physical in order to qualify for this knowledge. And then the knowledge, what does the knowledge do? We are looking at the second line first, okay? Because the first line is will take some time. So vidyaya, so the knowledge, through the knowledge, what happens? Vindate amritam. The knowledge bestows immortality. Immortality is not on the level of the body or the mind. Immortality is identifying with the I, that is as though just visiting the body or the mind right now. Right now, I am visiting the body mind sense complex. You check in and you check out, just like a hotel room. So when you check into the hotel, they give you a card, which is the key. Then you wave the key in front of the door, the card, and the room opens. Then you go inside. And then what? You're there for 3-4 days, a week perhaps, and then maybe you don't like the color scheme. Maybe you don't like that, one of the faucets is loose in the sink in the bathroom. Maybe you don't like the artwork. But you don't try to change anything because this is a temporary dwelling. I have come for a specific purpose to this town, to this place, and I have to just finish the purpose and go. Nobody tries to, dig out the carpets because I don't like the color scheme. I'm going to call in the people and put my own carpets in. All these things nobody does. You're just there, you ignore it. You're just there for a short time. And then when you check out, you just so you don't even need to return the key because it is just a card. You just recycle it somewhere and go on your way. And same thing, this body mind sense complex is check in, check out. That's all there is. And yes, it needs to be functional. So if you go into a hotel room and it's leaking and dripping, you can say, please fix this. Please fix this. This is dripping where I'm going to sit and do my work. Right under the study area, it is dripping. Or something is not functioning, you call the mechanic and say the light by the bed is not functioning, the telephone is out of service. Please fix this. So similarly, that's why there are doctors, from the podiatrist, the foot specialist, to the neurologist, the head specialist. They are all standing in line to serve this body, to serve the mind. Go to them by all means, fix whatever needs to be fixed up, and that's it. Enough to just maintain this body. Otherwise, what? This cognition, which is the body, which is a product of this cognition, doesn't take time to sneak into I cognition. First this body, then I body, my body, then I body. What are you doing to me? This is what you tell somebody. How can you do this to me? And so the me is what? The knowledge of I is skin deep, because wherever the sense of touch prevails, apparently that's where I. So here there is sense of touch, me. And then this finger also, there is sense of touch is pervaded. This finger is pervaded by the sense of touch, me. This finger is pervaded by the sense of touch, me. This, me. This, me. What about the space here? Not me, not me, not me, not me. Me, not me, me, not me. And think of how arbitrary it is. So the I knowledge that comes, built in, the default I knowledge is all just skin deep. It's only where the skin is there, where the sense of touch pervades, I say me. And beyond that, not me, not me, not me, not me, not me. This is what has to be changed through that resolve to study. And that Vidya, which completely dismantles long held notions of me, not me, this and I, and all these things, it scrambles them and dismisses them. Through that, you understand everything is me. In fact, there is no not me at all. Jagat is me, tree is me, sun is me, air is me, water is me, mountain is me. This can become a meditation. Flower is me. And then, lest one thinks that, oh, this is such a wonderful meditation, so easy. This meditation is very easy. In law is me, outlaw is me, and ferocious animals in the forest, me. And then creepy crawly things that nobody likes, snakes and all these reptiles, crabs and scorpions, me. Everything is me. Dangerous things, me. And that is, there is no not me. The this cognition has been swallowed up en masse by the I cognition. All that is there is I cognition alone. This cognition is just a value added plus. I cognition plus this cognition is equal to enjoying the Jagat. But if this cognition threatens to become I cognition, this is the rankest form of self ignorance. The I cognition is sometimes enjoyed as this cognition if one knows the whole Jagat is just a source of delight. The Jagat is Ananda because you know you are Ananda. If you don't know who you are, then the Jagat becomes a source of threat, a source of complaint, a source of sorrow and fear. And so, this is why the knowledge is needed. The teacher sums it up. This is why the knowledge is needed. And the first line of this mantra is wonderful. Bodham podham prati viditam. So, that which is bodham bodham prati means that which is the content of every cognition. In every cognition, what is there? There is, there is I, thinker. I as the thinker is there. Then there is an object of thought. Let us say apple. So the apple is an object of thought. I as the knower, the thinker, is the subject of the thought. And then the apple is cognized in at least two ways, at least three ways. You can taste the apple. You can be blindfolded and taste the apple and say, this is apple, I know apple. You can touch the apple and then say, this is apple. You can feel the apple by the shape. And of course, you can deploy your sight and see the apple. So, the apple is objectified through three means of knowledge. This object called apple. And so here, when you say, I know apple as an object, there is a prakriya, a kind of an operation, a twofold operation that takes place. This is technical and this is very important. So one is called, one is called vritti vyapti. What is this vritti vyapti? So the eyes, if one is not blindfolded, if it's not some kind of a know the fruit contest, if you can, let's say your eyes are open and then you go towards the apple and you say, this is apple. This is the obvious way in which the cognition takes place. There is yet another way in what is happening underlying this cognition. And what is that operation? It is called vritti vyapti. So the apple thought goes, as soon as the word apple is uttered, the apple thought goes through the eyes. From the mind, the apple thought goes through the eyes and envelops the said apple, so to speak, creating, because there is created in the mind apple vritti. Tadakara vritti, appleakara vritti. So the shape of the apple has taken place in the mind. That's why I can conduct this example without any apple present, because as soon as I said apple, all the apples have come into the mind. Your own Ishta apple, Gala apple, Granny apple, and what else? Honey crisp apple. golden, delicious apple. All your Ishta apples have come to the mind already. So this experiment can be conducted without an apple in sight, because that tadakara vritti, apple vritti, meaning the mind has as though become an apple. The whole apple has pervaded the mind to the exclusion of all other thoughts. There is only vritti, means the thought. So apple thought, the mind is filled with apple thought, it's inundated with apple thought. And then that apple thought, then if suppose, let's say there was an apple in the palm of my hand, the apple thought goes through the medium of the sense organs, the appropriate sense organ, through the eyes in this case. And then the apple thought walks through the eyes, flies through the eyes, and envelops the apple that is in hand. Which hand? My hand, of course, because I'm, showing you this example. So, what apple will I have in my hand? Himachal apple. Yeah. This apple from Himachal Pradesh, which is smaller than all the other apples in America. In America, if you see the apple, you get a little frightened because each one is so huge, big. 5 people can easily eat it and be filled up. So Indian apples are tinier. Or maybe I'm holding in my hand, which is just an apple for the namesake, crab apple. And that crab apple is very pungent, and you cannot eat it. It's just there for the flower and the seed, perhaps, and maybe some birds eat it. I don't know. Very sour apple, crab apple, maybe I'm holding. So now what happened? Your apple mind, your amplified mind, the mind that has completely been appleized, has to now contend with the correct apple that is being shown, and has to make an adjustment. So your Ishta apple has to go, and then the empirically real apple, the apple that I'm holding in the hand, that is available for objectification, has to be objectified. And then you say, this is the apple that you were trying to show me. I know this as apple. Same thing. If I say pot, all kinds of pot, silver pot, gold pot, clay pot, wood pot, all of them may be formed in the mind. But I am holding a certain pot of a certain size, and then the vritti adjusts itself. And then the cognition of the apple takes place. And then what about in Brahman cognition? If you replace apple with Brahman, then the mind doesn't know what to do. You tadeva brahmatvam vidhi, know yourself as Brahman. If I say something happens, yes, the first, so the first part of the cognition is same. Yes, I know this. Aha, yes, I understand this. Something happens even though you may not be able to articulate it. And that aha, which I know as myself, is called tadakara vritti. Here, akhandakara vritti, a vritti of oneness, inundates the mind, floods the mind. All is one. I don't know why I was just complaining about this just before class. I don't know what happens to me after class, but here all is one. Swimmy feeling of oneness. What anger, what fear. Tatra ko mohaha, kashokaha, ekatvam anupashyataha. Ishavasya Upanishad. Tatra means tasmin atmani, in that atma, in that knowledge of this atma. Ko mohaha, where is the delusion, where is the sadness, where are the broods of delusion in the form of fear, tears, etc. Kashokaha, what sorrow, what delusion for the one who sees everything as one, as oneself. So similarly, in the class, akhandakara vritti is created through the operation of the means of knowledge called the Upanishad with the help of the teacher. The teacher operates the pramana, the means of knowledge. And akhandakara vritti, the vritti of oneness, is created, which is why Vedanta is so enjoyable, which is why it is so addictive, because that is what one wants to know, that is what one wants to be. And so Then, in this atmosphere, the second portion of the cognition, I know this as apple, this is apple, which is called phalavyapti, is not there for Brahman. Because Brahman is as it is communicated, and as it is communicated is immediately understood as I, because that I which is understood is what is as good as it is. It is not an object, and it is self revealing I. The I that is already known is now known as everything. The I that was already known, the notions are dismissed and the knowledge remains the same. So, in the cognition of objects, there is a two-part operation. Vritti Vyapti, where the eyes go and as though envelop the object in the thought form. The thought form, going through the appropriate means of knowledge, envelops the object, brings it back for confirmation, and then the ahankara owns up this knowledge as this I have cognized. I am the cognizer of this apple. In Brahman cognition, what happens? In Brahman cognition, again the words of the teacher create the atmosphere of oneness, which is, what is that? Completely absorbed, which is absorbed by the student. And then in this absorption, that which is absorbed is already being oneself, self revealing, self effulgent I that need not be pointed out as an object. So I know Brahman, but I don't know it as an object. This is what the first line is trying to say. Pratibodha viditam matam. That which is invariable in every cognition. Because in every cognition, there are certain elements that are variable, and there is one presence that is invariable. What are the variable elements? The means of knowledge vary. Certain things are objectified through the eyes. I see this, I know this. I hear this raga, I know this. I pick up the smell of this, I know this. I taste this, I know this. I touch this, this is velvet, I know this. So, the means of knowledge vary. There is variance there is variety there is it's highly variable. And then the objects of cognition, needless to say, they vary. Because now I am the knower of apple, now I know the pot, now I know flower, now I know book, now I know computer, now I know pot, now I know thought. So here, the now is the invariable presence, and pot, thought, cat, hat, rat, mat, objects of cognition, variable. So now thought, now cat, now hat, now rat. So the now is I, invariable. Without the presence of this I now means ananta, limitless. That limitless, timeless I, which is signified by the word now, alone prevails in every cognition. And that now is very difficult to see, like the Tanpura player. It is there in the background, but in fact it is the foreground. It is like the light that lights up the theatre, that lights up the dancer in the 10th chapter of the Panchadashi. It is the light that lights up the audience. It is the light that lights up the orchestra. But yet when everybody says wah 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 and claps, nobody pays homage to the light. The dancer takes a bow, the musicians have their turn and they improvise and they take a bow. The audience also is very much in the picture. It is for their sake this concert is. But the light is ignored, and that light is the invariable presence because of which this concert called the Jagat, sometimes a concert, sometimes a cacophony, takes place. That light is the invariable light, that light of the theatre. The theatre lamp light, Nataka Deepa, is the invariable light of consciousness which brings object to light. which brings the means of knowledge to light, which brings the thinker also to light, without being either thinker or thought or the means of knowledge. This is what Pratibodha Viditam Matam is. In whose presence? In whose limitless presence, signified here in the example, I know this book now. Now I am the knower of the book. Now I am the knower of this. So I am now belong to the invariable cognition. Knower, variable, because in sleep there is no knower. Objects of cognition, variable, because as we know, needless to say, there are so many objects. Means of cognition, inference, multi-step inference, sight, sound, etc. All these, ears, all these means of cognition, variable. And in and through everything, there is that invariable presence that, as though morphs into knower, simultaneously morphs into known and morphs into the means of knowledge. This is very important, without becoming any one of them, without becoming any one of them. Like this oceanic limitless consciousness is free enough to sport numerous waves, the ocean doesn't become the waves. Ocean is ocean. Ocean manifests and sports the waves. The waves play as the ocean. Waves are ocean. They spring from the ocean, sustained by the ocean, resolve into the ocean. Ocean is not wave, wave is ocean. Thinker is not Brahman, you know. Thinker is Brahman, Brahman is not the thinker. Thought is Brahman, Brahman is not the thought. Means of thinking, means of knowing Brahman, Brahman is not any particular means of knowledge. And so, like in this wave ocean example, we can imagine three waves. One wave is knower wave, another wave is known wave, third wave we can say is a means of knowledge, means of knowing wave. All of them are simultaneously sustained. There is no time gap because we are talking of the timeless I. Simultaneously sustained, and the ocean cannot be called the knower here, knower wave. The ocean cannot be called the known wave. The ocean cannot be called the means of knowledge wave. So this is what is meant by pratibodha viditam matam. This is invariable, this is immortal, this is limitless, this is infinite. Know this as yourself. That invariable presence is you, that is Ishvara, that is the truth of the object, the truth of the knower, the truth of the subject, the content of the means of knowledge, everything is you. And so there is a final verse which is going to wrap up this chapter, which we have already seen. If you know this now and here, you are as good as existent. इह चेदवेदीन अथ सत्यमस्ति न चेदिह अवेदीन महति विनष्टिः. Why? Because if you don't know this, the knowledge, the ignorance of the self is an infinite loss, the self being infinite. And like I said in the first class, it is better to be the seeker of the infinite than an infinite seeker. If you're an infinite seeker seeking infinitely, then there is no end to the quest. You're obviously on the wrong, you have gone off, you're barking up the wrong tree, following the wrong scent. But if you are the seeker of the infinite, then your quest is finite, the infinite being you, which is right here, right now, and doesn't need to be objectified, to be understood, to be assimilated. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Amma.
Thank you.